Hi, I'm Val Thomas. I live in the city of Norwich in the county of Norfolk in the UK, and I've been studying the witchcraft and magic of this area for the last 27 years now. And I've called this presentation Witchcraft in the Landscape because that's the kind of witchcraft that appeals to me. The witchcraft of plant magic, of the creatures of the land, of the geology of the landscape, and all that you can find around you in the natural world. So today we're going to go on a journey to some of the liminal places around the county of Norfolk. We're going to see something of the natural world here, meet some of the ancestors, learn skills from the fair ones, and collect some special items of power. But we begin here, in this special place, which is in fact an ancient quarry just behind my house. It's the place where over all these years I've met with my fellow practitioners, worked magic, done spells and rituals, and celebrated the seasons. I've also spent many hours spinning in this garden, because this is a wonderful ancient craft, taught to us, of course, by the gods long ago. And there is something really special about the way you can take a basket full of loose and beautiful fluffy fibres and turn them into something usable and durable. Clothes, of course, because that's an important part of magic, making the things that we wear, but also into cords. And of course, I'm sure that many of you use cords in your magic. And you may well know the 9-knot cord spell, which is very popular among witches of all kinds. It has lots of different versions, and I say it differently every time, but it goes something like this. By knot of 1, the spell's begun. By knot of 2, it will come true. By knot of 3, this thing I see. By knot of 4, 'tis through the door. By knot of 5, my spell will thrive. By knot of 6, this thing I fix. By knot of 7, on earth be heaven. By knot of 8, I rule my fate. By knot of 9, this thing is mine. And of course you may also like the knitting spell, where you take a hand-spun yarn if you have it, or a commercial yarn if you don't, and you knit a square while chanting and muttering your intent into every stitch. And when it's done, you rip it off the needles and cast it into the fire. But you don't have to do special spells, because as the wheel turns, every twist that goes into the yarn has the potential for magic, for your magical intent. Which means, of course, that every scarf, every hat, every jumper is full of enchantment. The wheel itself is a magical item too. The spinning wheel, the wheel itself, represents the wheel of the year, ever turning. And this part of the wheel is known as the mother of all, and the 2 uprights are the maidens. What better honouring of the goddesses of this ancient craft could we possibly have? Now I'm spinning wool here today, sheep's wool from a local farm, and that makes for me a thread of connection with the landscape and also with the history, because it was through the wealth generated by wool that the great flint churches of East Anglia were built, and they are known as wool churches. So the sheep brings with it the magic of wealth, if that's what you want. Of course, the sheep is also a creature of warmth, of comfort, of love, and of hearth and home. So the magic she offers us is varied and plentiful. Now, we speak about spinning a yarn, spinning a tale, and so much of witchcraft is about telling a story, about creating our own story, whatever we want that to be. Wealth, possibly, success, love, abundance, healing, knowledge, or maybe just coping with adversity is enough. But my story here is a story of chalk and of flint, because these are an important part of the geology of Norfolk, and they inform what grows here, what animals thrive here, and even the kind of buildings that we have. And the Lady of the Chalk, white and beautiful, is Our Lady of Norfolk. And our Lord of Norfolk is the grey Lord of the Flint. So we're going to go out now and explore something of this beautiful county, the county of the Lady of the Chalk and the Lord of the Flint. But where shall we go? There's so much choice. So what we should do is consult one who knows, one who is well versed in the intricacies of the eldritch world of the county. So this is the Iceni, a wise one who knows. He's here today in his summer costume. He has a winter guise too, when he's dark and menacing. But today he's benevolent, and he's going to tell us where we should go on this journey and give us a little bit of advice. So, Iceni. Yeah? Okay, that's lovely. Thank you, Iceni. So, now we know. So I will take up my fortune basket with its little magnet in it to attract good fortune, and we'll go out and see what we can find. The element of water is a powerful magical force in Norfolk, which is surrounded by a sea to the north and east, and the mysterious Wash in the west. So this first place that the Iceni has sent us to is Holme next to the sea in northwest Norfolk. And as you can see, what a vast expanse of sky and sand and sea there is here. A liminal place indeed. It was here in 1998 that the Bronze Age structure known as Sea Henge appeared. It wasn't strictly speaking a henge, but a wooden palisade consisting of 55 posts surrounding an upturned oak tree. Nobody really knew for sure what it was there for, but everyone recognised it as special. It isn't here now. Controversially, it was moved away to a museum, but the magic is still here, as you can see. People are drawn to home for many reasons: to walk their dogs, to fly kites, to perform rituals, or to ride horses. And of course the horse was sacred to the Iceni tribe, whose territory included this area. Who knows? Perhaps today's riders are following in the hoof prints of a horse ridden by the warrior Queen Boudica, who fought to defend her land and her people from the Romans, and who is still very much a part of the magic here in the 21st century. We often come here just to sit out and commune with all that is around us, to watch the sea spirits dancing on the water, to hear the messages of the birds, or to read the meaning of the strange swirling of the sand as it's whipped along by the wind. We come here to collect treasures too. Every beach along the miles of Norfolk coast has its own special things to offer. There are hagstones everywhere, those magical stones with natural holes which give us luck and protection. Some are small enough to wear as necklaces or even earrings, while others are large enough to use for poppets or spirit dolls, to pass them through in order to bring them to life before they are named and given their magical tasks. Further round the coast at Sheringham, West and East Runton and Cromer, we find fossils such as belemnites, which are also known as elf bolts. They make fabulous wand tips, but can also be used as pendulums or just worn as jewellery. There are magical stones too, semi-precious ones like carnelian, which can help people become more outgoing and confident, ease period pains, or help in spells to bring a planned project to fruition. If you are really lucky, you might find a piece of amber. It's actually fossilised pine resin, which forms a mystical bridge between land and sea and between ancient and modern times. It's so light and warm to the touch and speaks to us of its long experience from the moment it flowed from the tree through all those 50 million years of journeying to be picked up and treasured by you or me. And then there is the sea glass, of much more recent times, but still embodying the alchemy of its fiery production, its use as a bottle or bowl, how it was broken and discarded, and the story of the wave in which it has been tumbled smooth and cast up on our shores. It's wonderful for spells of transformation, or even magical work to encourage recycling. Then there are the shells too, of course. All shells are good for the magic of hearth and home, because they have all been the home of some creature who has lived its life and is now gone. Cockles are great to paint on the inside for making light portable rune sets. Razor shells can cut unwanted ties. And oyster shells are the mirrors of the many mermaids who dwell around this coastline. They make lovely bowls, especially to make offerings to the fair ones. The sea urchins are particularly special, and this autumn at home we found quite a lot of them. These definitely deserve pride of place on a mantel shelf or in a magical sproul box,
which is a box of treasures from which we can draw energy and power. Some people consider sea urchins to be fairy loaves, although stones which split open at the top like a bread roll are also given that name. And they ensure that the household will never want for bread. Other people place them on the windowsill to ward off lightning and the evil eye. However one sees them, they're certainly treasures and give a real sense of abundance and good things in life. Many of the ones we've found this year had their spines still on them, which makes them extra protective, of course. Something else which is very spiky is growing in the sand dunes here. These are the magnificent sea buckthorn bushes. The plant has orange berries, which usually ripen quite late in the year, and are really sharp and tangy, highly nutritious and full of vitamin C to support the immune system. They're not easy to pick though, because of all the thorns, which are numerous and very sharp. It's worth the effort though, and few people are interested in picking them. Lots of people think they're poisonous and can hardly believe their eyes when they see us picking them. They make lovely jellies and curds, and a few spines can be taken for protective purposes. The roots of the bushes actually protect the sand dunes, so they are very important and powerful beings here.
I said that the element of water was really important in Norfolk, but it isn't just the lovely beaches where we go to meet the spirits of water. We can also come here to the extensive inland waterways of Broadland and the areas known as the Norfolk Broads. This broad behind me is Salhouse Broad, and as you can see, this is a wonderful place for watching birds and for boating if that's the way you find your magic. It's also a good place to meet the ancestors because, funnily enough, although these waterways are really important for nature and wildlife, they were not natural from the beginning. They were dug out by people who wanted to take the peat for their building and their fires. And the deep depressions they left behind filled up with water and left us with this wonderful space, which is really popular with holiday makers. And as you can see, it's a place where sky and earth and water all meet together. And the element of fire too, sometimes on a nice day, when as today you can see the sunshine sparkling on the water. So what would we take from here to work our magic? A feather, perhaps, for lightness, for fleetness of thought and of foot. Or we might take a reed, because there are lots that grow around this area. And of course the reed is one of the Ogham letters if you're interested in the Celtic alphabet, but it's also a symbol of royalty and of protection because it's used for thatching houses. You can, if you pick the reed heads at this time of year, make a green dye from their purple flowering tops. And also, when you come to a place where there are lots of reeds all growing close together, that can give you an entrance to the underworld. Or you might find some sweet flag here. It used to be grown commercially in Broadland. Long time ago, when people used to have strewing herbs for their home. And this is a plant which smells really sweet and freshens the air. And Norwich Cathedral used to have lots and lots of sweet flags strewn on its floor. We still use the plant today, not for strewing of course, but because its root is a very good medicine. You can use a little of it to treat acid reflux, or you can take a larger dose and use that as a tonic to help your digestion and to improve your overall health. You might also want to take some of the root of the sweet flag as a way of attracting money, because if you carry it in your pocket, it's very fortunate. And if you manage to grow some in a pond in your garden, that is a great blessing for a gardener. You might also want to take some iris. All around this area there are lots and lots of big yellow flag irises. They used to be used as medicine too, but actually they're rather purgative, so they give you a better clear out than you would really want to have. So herbalists these days tend not to use them. We prefer now the blue flag, Iris versicolor, which is much more gentle. However, the leaves of the yellow flag iris make wonderful baskets if you twist them and coil them and stitch them together. And of course, that makes for a great possibility of adding magic to them. And once you've got the basket, maybe you would use it for offerings or for keeping special magical items. From Waterways to Woodland, we've come all the way from east to west across the county to this wonderful place which is known as Wayland Wood. Now, of course, that is a reference to the divine smith Wayland, but this wood has another name too, a rather more sinister one. Some people call it Wayland Wood because this is the place which is the origin of the story of Babes in the Wood. I'm sure you know this tale. It's a sad one of two orphan children, a boy and a girl, who were sent into the care of their uncle. But unfortunately, the uncle wanted to steal their inheritance for himself, so he hired two murderers to bring them to the wood here and kill them. However, the murderers were too soft-hearted to kill the children, so they left them in the wood. But it was winter and cold, and there was nothing for the children to eat. So they lay down under the trees, and the birds covered them with leaves. And sadly they died here. And it's said that the oak tree under which the children died was later struck by lightning. And this tale is commemorated on the town sign of Wotton, which shows the two babes coming to their sad end in this woodland. And some people have said that they can see the sad shadows of the children flitting past here. But whenever I've been here, I've only seen more positive things, because as well as being the place of the death of those children, this woodland is also full of the fair folk. Now, the fair folk have many different forms. Some are huge and some are really tiny, like the little hikey sprites that are special to Norfolk and are almost like little stick figures that flit in the trees. We have other kinds of fairies too. They go by many, many names. There are the strangers, the green coaties, the little people, and many other names besides. And we have to be careful how we deal with them, because they can get angry with us, and there are many interesting stories of people having upset the little people, the green coaties, and they can turn against you, and the consequences can be very nasty indeed. So as a witch in your area, it's a good idea to understand the fair folk that are around you and to know what they like and what you can do to make them happy. One of the things that I always do is to ensure that all of the fair ones are given the first fruits of everything that I grow or pick in the garden. So I have a special place to offer to the fairies the first tomatoes, the first cucumbers, the first apples from the tree. And they must have the first and the best if the subsequent harvest is to be a good one. So here we are in this lovely woodland where the fairies are all around us. We're on the main path here through the wood, but to one side and to the other, if you're quiet and careful, maybe you can see a little movement in the trees, the flip of a leaf, the breaking of a twig, and that might be one of the fair ones, a hikey sprite, an elf, or some other magical creature going about its business, or maybe watching us and wondering what we are doing here. And I am grateful to the fair folk for letting me come here today and making this presentation here, because they can be shy and secretive. But I will, of course, make them a suitable offering. Now, we don't leave anything in the woodland that could be seen. Our offerings are different, more subtle. Sometimes we might play music or sing a song for them. Sometimes leave them a little sacred oil placed in a special place on the ground. Sometimes we come here wearing jewellery which we've made to honour them. And if we work with them and we are careful, they can enhance many of our skills. They can teach us about music. They can teach us about art and healing. They can teach us to know the secrets of the forest. I said that the fair folk of this would have much to teach us, and of course one of their specialities is herbal medicine and magic, because this woodland is full of very special plants. One of the trees that grows here is the bird cherry, and that's a particularly magical tree because it blooms just for a few short days at Beltane tide. The flowers come out and before you know it, they're gone. So you have to make sure that you get here at the right moment in order to see them. And magically, the bird cherry has much to teach us about seizing the moment, about making the most of opportunities that we have. Now, in Russia, the bird cherry flowers are used as a disinfectant. They are dried and made into a powder. But if you dry the flowers from here and make them into a powder, and every year I take just a few to do that, you can make a lovely herbal magical pouch to make sure that you take every opportunity that's offered to you. The bird cherry is also important here because this is the furthest south that it happily grows, because it really prefers a cold climate. And although you do find it further south than here, this is where it likes to grow naturally. There are plenty of other lovely things here at Beltane tide as well. One of the things that's most beautiful to see is the carpet of bluebells that's everywhere. Now, we don't really use these for medicine, of course, because they are quite poisonous, but they're much associated with the fairies. The bluebells ring at Beltane to call the fairies to their meetings. And of course, a lot of people say that bluebells are dangerous. And indeed, the glue that was made from the bulbs of the bluebell was used in the past for fletching arrows, so it could bring death to animals or indeed to people. As you can see here, we're filming here in autumn, so a lot of the flowers have now gone, but there are plenty of herbs still here that you can look at. I've just picked here to put in my basket a little stalk of the herb speedwell, which is a wonderful herb for helping you with journeys, to make sure that the journey goes as well as it possibly can do. This one is meadowsweet. At midsummer it has lovely plumes of creamy white flowers. But as a medicinal herb, it's absolutely wonderful. You can take it as a tea, or you can make it into a tincture, and it's good for your joints. So if you have arthritis, it can be really helpful, or any other pains and aches and in joints or muscles. This is the herb from which aspirin was originally made. So the original use of the herb is very much connected with the way it's been used by modern medicine. It's also great for the stomach. It can be really helpful if you've got an ulcer, or if you've got IBS, or if you've got acid reflux. So that's a wonderful plant. And of course, the flowers that I mentioned are used for hand fastings. Here in the basket I found just a little head left over from self-heal. And this is such an important plant in difficult times, because it can remind us that much as we all like to help other people, we need to take care of ourselves as well. It's an excellent wound herb too, and can really help a cut to heal much more quickly than it would if you didn't use it. And also in the basket I have just a leaf of plantain, Plantago major. And this herb has such a range of uses. It's really, really important herb. It's actually mentioned in the Anglo-Saxon 9 herbs charm. And we are told that bulls stomped over this herb, that carts rode over it, that brides wept over it. It was trodden down, but still it survived. And so this is a great herb to give people if they feel downtrodden in their lives. This little herb, and also the cousin of this herb, the ribwort plantain, Plantago lanceolata, they are wonderful herbs for treating allergies and for helping the mucous membranes anywhere in the body. So an all-round excellent herb, both magically and medicinally. Well, I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to listen instead. So I'm off now to go into this woodland and hear what the herbs and the fair ones have to teach. Just a short distance down the road from Wayland Wood is another nature reserve which has a different kind of magic completely. This is East Wretham Heath, a dry, sandy area which is littered with the flints of the Grey Lord of Norfolk. We often refer to it as the Field of Bones, or the Bone Place. Walking across the grass, which is cropped short by the nibbling of rabbits, it is possible to collect basketfuls of the bones of these magical creatures. Rabbits have been an important part of the Breckland economy here for centuries, providing fur and meat, with warrens being fiercely protected and poaching severely punished. Rabbits are generally considered to be lucky magically, and the rabbit's foot good luck charm is common throughout Britain. However, in both Thetford and Bodney, places which have had very large warrens, tales are told of a huge, menacing rabbit, sometimes described in a manner not dissimilar to the more common phantom dog often known as black shuck. Nevertheless, we consider rabbits to be very lucky and often make a little lucky Breckland rabbit charm and keep any bones we find. Picked clean and scoured white by wind and sun, they encapsulate the harsh beauty and magic of the landscape, which holds traces of our ancestors from the receding of the glaciers to the present day. In the midst of so many reminders of the passing of generations, human, animal and plant, we feel the intensity of our own existence, and a simple handful of rabbit bones which carry the memory of the Heathland wind can form a simple charm to enhance our love of life. East Wretham Heath is very much part of Odin or Woden's territory, and it's not difficult to see his solitary cloaked figure gliding across the wide grassy expanses, or standing motionless beneath the great trees, listening to the constant calling from the vast rookeries. He wanders too beside the enchanted mere-folk inhabited pools of Langmere, Ringmere and Fenmere. This area is now in the care of the Norfolk Wildlife Trust and has been since 1939, although it was requisitioned for military training during World War II and was part of the East Wretham airfield until 1970. How quickly nature recovers though. What was once a bunker beside the runway is now home to 5 different species of bat. Other natural treasures of the site include woodlarks, stone curlews, dark mullein, wall pepper, lady's bedstraw and viper's bugloss. Not to mention the magnificent gnarly pines which were planted at the time of the Battle of Waterloo. Should any confirmation be needed of the enduring magic of this area, one only has to look at the village sign of Wretham, erected in 1977. Along with a ram's head, a kind of beetle known locally as a chovy, a Norfolk name for the cockchafer, and 3 partridges, the sign depicts a witch and her cat on a broomstick, flying over some grassland towards a stand of conifers. We've seen lots of places out in the countryside, but of course plenty of magic can also be found in our towns and cities. So we've travelled now to the graveyard of St Nicholas's Church in the very centre of the mid-Norfolk town of East Dereham. Here we can find a well sacred to St Withburga. Now, great beings who are remembered as miracle-working saints are often emanations of much more ancient forces, and this is certainly true of St Withburga. So what I'd like to do now is read you a little of her story as I wrote it down in my recent book of Chalk and Flint, A Way of Norfolk Magic. St Withburga was the youngest and poorest daughter of the Anglo-Saxon King Anna of East Anglia. When he was killed in battle in 654 CE, she moved from Holkham on the north coast to East Dereham in mid-Norfolk and decided to build a nunnery. However, her funds ran dry and she had no way of feeding her workmen. She prayed for assistance and was visited by a vision of the Virgin Mary, who instructed her to send 2 serving women down to the river, where 2 does would stand and allow themselves to be milked. This she did, and the deer gave the community enough milk to provide for their needs. All was well until the evil Reeve, jealous of Withburga's success,
set out with a hunting party to kill the deer. However, in an example of divine or magical protection, before any harm could be done, the reeve was thrown from his horse, broke his neck and died. This scene is dramatically depicted on a frieze-like sign which spans the high street in the centre of the town. After Withburga's death, many people visited her grave, and there are numerous tales of healing and other miracles. However, despite having plenty of holy relics of their own, the monks of Ely were jealous of East Derham's possession of the remains of such a remarkable saint, and in 974 CE, Abbot Britnoth ordered her body to be translated to Ely. Subterfuge was required, as it was clear that the people of Derham would never willingly give up their saint. So the monks of Ely, on a visit, offered to provide a feast for the Derham community. They were generous with the alcohol, but remained sober themselves, and while the good folk of Derham were sleeping off the effects of the party, they made off with Withburga, put her on a cart, and stole her away. The men of Derham gave chase as soon as they realised what had befallen, but were unable to catch the thieves. Returning home in despair at their loss, they went to the church to discover that a spring had miraculously risen from the original grave. More miracles occurred at the spring, and pilgrims flocked to the site in greater numbers than ever. The water still retains a reputation for curative properties, although it's not currently advisable to drink it due to the proximity of so many more recent graves. Meanwhile, the bones of St Withburga and the other saints of Ely were mostly scattered and lost during Viking attacks on the abbey, according to the people of Derham. Magically, St Withburga is a gentle provider who will assist in times of genuine need and can be called upon to support various spiritual endeavours. She is both a saint and a goddess, and we work with her accordingly, meditating on her story and ever acknowledging her place within the sacred landscape. Her quiet persistence and the flow of her healing love in the face of so much jealousy are much needed qualities in the modern world. St Withburga also has significant connections to the fair folk. It is said that during their journey back to Ely, the thieving monks rested at Brandon before placing St Withburga on a boat for the remainder of the journey. Nuns from the convent at Thetford made their way down to the river and covered the saint's body with magical cuckoo-pint flowers. This is an interesting floral choice, hardly in keeping with the standard notions of Christian purity. The plant's other names include such evocative phrases as lords and ladies, willy lily, snake's meat, and devils and angels. So it is certainly a symbol of potency. And the river journey proceeded along the little ooze. Some of the flowers fell into the water and took root in the banks. Within an hour, the river banks from Brandon to Ely were covered in these delightful flowers, which glowed at night and thus became known by the Fenland lightermen as fairy lamps or shiners. To call upon St Withburga, the classic image of her with her two does can be used, a deer's foot bell can be rung, and a deer's skull, some cuckoo-pint flowers and some heart-tongues ferns placed upon either a red or a white or blue altar cloth. Water from her well is useful too, but not easy to obtain. However lovely a full Withburga ritual can be, she will also respond to simple requests if the situation should be appropriate. It should be remembered when working with St Withburga that as a waffing princess, She is descended from Odin via a long line of powerful men and women, many of whom were wonder workers and magicians, and so seen as saints from a Christian perspective, because they had sanctity in the blood. Even from her earlier years, Withburga was performing acts of magic. A 12th century life of St Withburga tells a tale from her childhood when she was living on the coast at Holcombe. She persuaded her playmates to collect pebbles from the beach and gather them together in a heap ready for building work, as if a church were to be constructed. Those few stones Withburga collected multiplied, much to the envy of the other children who tried to scatter her pile of stones. However, when she made the sign of the cross, the stones clumped back together as if rooted and grounded. A church dedicated to St Withburga still stands on this site today, on a strangely raised mound surrounded by deer. No one can say for sure whether this odd landscape feature is natural or man-made. Some say it is an ancient barrow, but many accept that it is the result of Withburga's magic. This fascinating incident in the saint's life, perhaps poorly understood by Jocelyn of Saint-Bertin, who recorded it, resonates well with our local magic. Withburga collects the gifts of the Flint Lord, thrown up at a liminal place of meeting between the elements, and uses her power of building to create something of spiritual value that will endure for centuries. Withburga may well have been weaving connections with the past, since very near this site, in the heart of Boudicca's territory, was an Iron Age fort, and perhaps some of the stone for the new project was being recycled from a much older structure. Another recurring theme in stories about St Withburga is that her magic frequently arouses the envy of other people, who then try to sabotage what she is doing. Yet St Withburga is divinely protected, whether by Odin or by the Christian god, and apart from the children, all her opponents come to a violent end.
Well, it's lovely being out and about in the landscape, finding things that we can use to work our magic, gaining insights and getting guidance from the spirits out there. But it's also lovely to come back to the cauldron and the place of the hearth fire, where we can reflect on everything that we've learned. And I love being out by myself in the landscape, and I love to sit and reflect here with my cauldron on my own. But another important aspect of our magic in Norfolk is our sense of community. Because we are all individuals, but we do like to come together, and when we work with other practitioners and share our skills, we can achieve so much more than we would be able to do just on our own. And so, before I say goodbye, I'd like to say a very special thank you to somebody who's been with me throughout this presentation, because I haven't really been alone in the landscape. I've been with my dear friend, the witch, artist and craftsperson, Vix Valentine. And I'd very much like to thank them for giving up so much of their valuable time to work on this presentation with me. I had hoped to lure them out from behind the camera and introduce them to you, but unfortunately they are a little camera shy, so I've had to accept that. So the time approaches when I should say goodbye, but before I do, I would like to thank this amazing online community for inviting me to speak to them and for listening to the presentation. And the only thing left to do now, as I have my pumpkin ready, is to wish everybody a happy and blessed Samhain.